keeps us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Howdy ho, neighborinos. Don't do it. Okay. I thought I hit something that would have taken you guys back to the waiting room. My name's Dion. If you're here, please say hello whether you're watching live or the rewatch. I'm gonna give it to about the 2.5 minute mark before I get going, just to let people come in. Of course, welcome to the Daily Trudge. I don't throw this one out here as much anymore, but please feel free to ask any questions while we're doing this. Or if you have a different experience, please put it in there. I am not. Hi again, Patricia. I kind of anticipated you. You're one of my regulars right now. Chris, good to see you. Good to see you, Chris. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start paying Patricia. I'm gonna get started here in a second, but I came up with I think it's a neat idea. So recently somebody watched a podcast. I love you too, Chris. They were watching the podcast, and then they donated $25, right? Which, the amount isn't okay. So what I want to do is that person that donated $25, they're going to be the sponsor for my next podcast. So the next podcast I put out will be sponsored by Jamie Daly, because he is the one that gave me $25, and anybody that wants to sponsor a speaker can do that. I just ask for $25, and it covers what I do over here and the time that it takes to get things together. And then you could be a sponsor. And then everybody gets to be involved, because maybe not everybody's ready to tell their story yet, but stories are very important. So, but let's go. I'm at the 3-minute mark, so let's go ahead and get going here. So step 1 out of the 12 by 12. And I'm hoping that this goes over well enough that I'm going to go through all the steps and all the traditions and make a tradition. I'm going to have to do this over because I didn't quite go into it. But so anyway, let's get started. I'm going to read the long version first in the front. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Who cares to admit complete defeat? Admission over powerlessness is the first step in liberation. Relation of humility to sobriety. Mental obsession plus physical allergy. Why must every AA hit bottom? Right. Step 1, I want to talk about that right there. That is the first word of the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous, because we do this together. Right? So right off the bat, the very first word is giving you direction. That we do this together. We don't do this alone. You can't. I've never met anybody that could do this all by themselves. I know I couldn't. I didn't even come close. Not even close. So, I have found that we can watch other people so that we don't have to go through things ourselves too. So let's remember that. So we admit we're powerless over alcohol. And that our lives have become unmanageable. It's usually the unmanageable part that people get stuck on, It's not even the alcoholic part. My life's not unmanageable. What are you talking about? Until you sit down with them, because you don't really realize what it is that you're actually doing until somebody that is like you sits in front of you and says, "Me too. I did that too. You're not alone in all of this." Okay? You are unique, but you're not so unique that you're terminally unique, that um, nobody is like you. Right? Who cares to admit complete defeat? Practically no one, of course. No one wants to do that because they don't understand it yet. See, complete defeat leads to a freedom. Okay, so in the very beginning, we are starting off by what is this? It's letting go and letting God. We are teaching you how to do something from the very beginning. You're not going to quite catch it. Okay, you're not going to be able to see the forest for the trees yet on this because it's something you must experience. Every natural instinct cries out against the idea of personal powerlessness. We have been taught all of our lives, to fight for what you get. You must fight. And I get that. I get that. But maybe turn that fighting into a passion instead. Because I feel like fighting comes with anger, and I cannot do anger. I've actually been talking to my wife and my brother-in-law about this. I was telling the last couple of days, I cannot do anger. It will kill me. It will kill me. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. No other bankruptcy is like this one, and that's true. Okay? Okay, kids. Now, I know there's drugs out there also, but the addiction to alcohol and the addiction to drugs is different. Okay? Alcohol now become the rapiest creditor, bleeds us of all self-sufficiency and all will to resist its demands. Once this stark fact is accepted, our bankruptcy, as far as human goes concerned, is complete. Once this stark fact is accepted, so you're going to come into an agreement on step one. Okay, all right. I got to admit it. Maybe my life is a little bit out of control. That's good enough for me. That's a good enough start to make a beginning. Because I also have to remember that maybe not everybody went through what I went through. Maybe I'm dealing with somebody who's younger, 22, 23. I was 3 years, actually, I was 2.5 years. No, I was 3.5 years sober when I turned 21. I didn't drink on my 21st birthday. In fact, my wife at the time was out of town at the time. My mom came over with a birthday cake. We watched 90210, and that was it. You know, kind of made me mad. That was my 21st birthday. But at least my mom showed up, right? People cared. There was death in the family and stuff. That's why my wife at the time couldn't be there. That wasn't on her. And I'm, so what if you're working with somebody that's, maybe hasn't experienced those things? Now, the reason that I got sober at such a young age is because I was homeless. So there was something that was going on in my life, that obviously put me there. So it was apparent that my life was unmanageable. From the time that I got emancipated from my family, from my parents, my life went straight downhill because I didn't know what I was doing. And I had to figure it out. So, but upon entering AA, we soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. There's that word, humiliation. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because it sucks to talk about, right? I was humiliated. Okay. This has nothing to do with being humble. All right. This is not humility is a different word than being humble. or even humility. That's a different word. Humiliation is the actions that you have done made you not want to see other people, right? And that's why we start to isolate, because we don't want other people to see what we've actually turned into. And we will hide that raging inner Mr. Hyde, right? Because we have two personalities. Some of us have more than that. And we have to get rid of those other personalities eventually, right? Or you could call it wearing hats. I wear one hat. It is the Dion hat. And that's it. That's all I can do. We perceive that only through utter defeat are we able to take our first steps towards liberation. What is liberation? It's freedom. Be liberated. Okay. Liberated would be like getting out of jail. Okay. But you had to be in jail first, or you couldn't be liberated, because otherwise you weren't in that in order to be liberated from. Our admission of personal powerlessness finally turns out to be the firm bedrock upon which happy and purposeful lives may be built. Bedrock. That means we are building a foundation. Where are the foundation steps? 0, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Yes. Did you forget about the step before the steps? I bet you did, because I kind of, the psychic change, which is a step before the steps. We've changed our mind. We want to try a different life. Okay. So what do we need here? We need open-mindedness. Okay. More than anything, we're going to need honesty. How it works talks about this in the very beginning. So remember, you can work on steps 1, 2, and 3 every single day. When you ask God to keep you clean and sober for that day, you're doing step 1. God, please help me out in my daily need of my life, and your will, not mine, be done. That's the second part of the first step. You're already doing it. That is the miracle of it. You've already kind of done it. We're only 3 paragraphs into this, so I'll probably hurry up a little bit. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA unless he has first accepted his devastating weakness and all its consequences. Now, the effect that could be produced by it, the effect that could be produced by that is what they're talking about. But what about planting the seed? Okay. We know that little good can come to any alcoholic who joins AA. Okay. You're a member of AA, but maybe you're there and, you're there. Maybe you were mandated by the courts to be there. Right. So you're like, well, fuck, what do these people have to do? But what we're doing is we're planting a seed. See, we think we fail when we don't. That person went back out. I failed. No, you didn't, first of all, fail, but you did succeed in something. You planted a seed. That means that their drinking career will never, ever be the same again. Ever. They're going to get mad. I get texts, happens once, twice a year. Dion, fuck you and fuck the program. That means I got you. That's actually a good text. Why is it a good text? Because I'm not taking it personally. I don't take that stuff personally. Right? Until he so humbles himself, his sobriety, if any, will be precarious. Of real happiness, he will not find any. He will find none at all, is what it says. Proved beyond doubt by an immense experience, this is one of the facts of AA life. The principle that we shall find no enduring strength until we first admit complete defeat is the main taproot from which our whole society has sprung and flowered. So you will find no enduring strength until you admit defeat. And what are we really doing there? We're just asking for help because they're asking us to be honest. Yes, we alcoholics are definitely stubborn. But right here it says admitting complete defeat is the main taproot. That means everybody before me did it too. So why should I not? Why not give it a try at least? Go to meetings for 30 days. If it doesn't improve your life, it's going to improve your life if you're honest about it. It is. And see, AA works in a lot of different areas. I'm just going to cover this real quick. A lot of the people that a lot of the actors and singers and things like that, most of them are in sobriety. They're not in recovery. They're normies who understood that alcohol was standing in their way. That's the type of lifestyle that they live. Then there's the real ones: Steven Tyler, Elton John, Eminem. There's some of them, but keep in mind, not all of them are. Okay, there are some people that come into AA with a drinking problem that aren't necessarily an alcoholic. But that's not for you and me to decide. That is between them and their higher power. So let them be. The first challenge to admit defeat, most of us revolted. We had approached AA expecting to be taught self-confidence. Then we have been told that so far as alcohol is concerned, self-confidence was no good whatever. In fact, it was a total liability. It was a total liability. And let me tell you something. When you're a big book thumper and you go out after 12 years, this is what happens to you. You think that your self-confidence is going to get you through. I'm riding high. I'm feeling good. That is the trap we always fall into. And that's exactly why I do the things that I do now. I don't want me to ever have a chance to go out because I won't make it back. It'll kill me. I have no more drinks in me. I have no more recoveries in me. This is it. Our sponsors declared that we were victims of a mental obsession so subtly powered that no human power could break it. We are born with this. When this was written, we didn't know that. We are born with this disease. We've proven that. That means that the cards were against you from the day you were born. Okay? The only thing that was standing in between you and a miserable fucking life was one drop of alcohol. Ouch, man. That kind of hurts. Yes, I have too. Like Roger Waters. That's a very good point. Jimi Hendrix. From the Doors. Jimmy, what's his name? Why can't I remember? Anyway, doesn't matter. Yes, an allergy. So we already are born with this disease. Okay. And I wish I could sit down and say, we can stop generational curses. But with that, we cannot. I cannot control how somebody's born. It says it in the big book. We think we're born with it. They were right. We are born with it. From the moment we were born, our brains thought we had to clamor for everything for attention to make ourselves feel better. I was on my mother's hip from the day I was born. And I kind of remember that, my mom told me I wouldn't let anybody hold me except her or my grandmother or my aunt. That was it. Otherwise, I didn't want you near me. So even from the beginning, and I didn't even have alcohol in me, my need to let other people fulfill my destinies became paramount. And I wouldn't understand it any other way until that was interrupted by my disease of alcoholism and I started reading the big book. The tyrant, no, relentlessly deepening our dilemma, our sponsors pointed out our increasing sensitivity to alcohol, an allergy, they called it. And I'm going to cover that, but the tyrant alcohol wielded a double-edged sword over us. First, we were smitten by an insane urge that condemned us to go on drinking, and then by an allergy of the body that ensured we would ultimately destroy ourselves in the process. Few indeed were those so assailed had ever won through single-handed combat. It was a statistical fact that alcoholics almost never recovered on their own resources, and this had been true apparently ever since man had crushed grapes. So the tyrant alcohol wielded a double-edged sword over us, and before that, it's relentlessly deepening our dilemma. Our sponsors pointed out our increasing sensitivity to alcohol. All right. Woo. The increasing sensitivity to alcohol means that you have to drink more to where you get to. Oh, right? By the time I was like 40, a six-pack was a thirst quencher. It was a good start. Okay? But it would not get me to where I needed. Then the sensitivity actually will flip on you. So what starts to happen is your body will require the alcohol or you will die. Period. Alcohol withdrawal will kill you. It is the only withdrawal that will kill you. The rest of them are just very, very uncomfortable. See how the addiction to alcohol is different. Okay. I deal with a lot of people that their main drug of choice was not alcohol. Okay. But they stay away from alcohol. And we always have to have the conversation where, for them, alcohol is a stepping point to their harder drugs. Okay. Let's think on that, and the people that we deal with. And that's a part of, meeting somebody where they are at. In an AA's pioneering time, none but the most desperate cases could swallow and digest this palatable truth. Even these last gaspers often had difficulty in realizing how hopeless they actually were, but a few did. And when these laid hold of AA principles with all fervor with which the drowning sees life preservers, they almost invariably got well. That is why the first edition of the book, Alcoholics Anonymous, published when our membership was small, dealt with low bottom cases only. Many desperate alcoholics tried AA but could not succeed because they could not make the admission of hopelessness. Thank God it's not like that anymore. Or most of us wouldn't even be in AA. That's cool because my cup's green. It's my ghost cup. Ooh. I got to entertain myself somehow. All right. Let's talk bottoms. Not fat bottom girls. I can't sing that or it'll get cut off. That happened to me. I can't sing things. Okay. Almost happened. In fact, the other day, I got a notice that I couldn't use my theme song because it was a copyright infringement. I wrote on like, it's my song. They're like, yes, it is. Sorry. Okay, I am going to get into bottom here still, but let's just talk about, okay, we say rock bottom. Let's get rid of rock. It's just a bottom. What it is you've had enough. Because when we tell people rock bottom, we all know what we think. We think of the poor guys that are alcoholics living under the bridge. Why would you say, I'm an alcoholic? Go help them. They need help, not me. but for the grace of God, go on. I've experienced but I've experienced being new twice. Okay. Once when I was 18 and once when I was 45. And it was different. When I was 18, I was homeless. That's good enough reason, right? Don't you think, for an 18-year-old? Can't even find his fucking way. It was enough. Not enough at the age of 45. It was much different. Okay. Oh, the other thing about the increasing of alcohol, I'm sorry I missed it. I cut it off. So, what happens on your increasing thing of alcohol is the tables will turn. You will only be able to drink a certain amount, and then it doesn't work. The last time I drank a six pack, and I detoxed for 2 fucking weeks because my body couldn't process the alcohol anymore. It needed alcohol in order to even survive. So the joke that I used to use that there was too much blood in my alcohol system became true. I didn't want that one to come true. All right. Now we'll get back to the bottoms. Let's get rid of rock. And let's just go with my bottom was, okay, it is a tremendous satisfaction to record that in the following years this changed. Alcoholics who still had their health, their families, their jobs, and even 2 cars in the garage began to recognize their alcoholism. As this trend grew, they were joined by young people who were scarcely more than potential alcoholics. They were spared the last 10, 15 years of literal hell the rest of us had gone through. Remember that I told you that I sobered up the first time at 18. Did I have that? They would said here, the literal hell the rest of us gone through, and I got a lot of crap from people. People used to tell me I spilled more alcohol in the bar than you ever drank. I'd always hear like, "You got your whole life ahead of you. You should be grateful for that." You know what? Stop that shit. It pissed me off because then I would tell my story and they'd be like, "Oh fuck." My story from my first recovery takes me an hour. It takes me over 2 hours to tell my full story. I mean, heck, we're just reading step one. We're kind of getting through it. We're at 30 minutes because I love to take my time on this stuff. I'm going to tell you, I'm extremely grateful for a man named Ray Hayworth that opened the Fiends concept because this is what he did with us. I'm not doing anything new. I'm not. Okay, so let's get back to this. Step one requires an admission that our lives have become unmanageable. How could people such as these take these steps? I just told you. It's obviously necessary to raise the bottom the rest of us had to hit, where it would hit them. What are they? Okay. That is saying we meet people where they are at. That's what it's saying. By going back in our own drinking histories, we could show that years before we realized if we were out of control, that our drinking even then was no mere habit. That indeed was the beginning of a fatal progression. To the doubters, we could say, perhaps you're not an alcoholic after all. Why don't you try some more controlled drinking, bearing in mind, meanwhile, what we have told you about alcoholism. We don't really do this anymore. And for reasons. Okay. Because they'll usually take themselves out. I don't need to tell them to go do this. And I actually feel a little uncomfortable doing it because we have to remember it was different back then. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not for me to decide whether it's wrong, but in my estimation, things have kind of changed. Things used to be a little bit rougher. Now we're a little bit more emotionally based now, and that's kind of why it's changed. And for the better, I think, because instead we support them in what it is that they're saying instead of, well, if you don't, then go out and try it. Because they're going to try it themselves. We already know this. So instead, we just keep planting that seed, water it a little bit for them. So that way they'll turn around one day and go, fuck, I got to get to AA. This life ain't working for me. You have the power to do that stuff. Did you know that? You do. This attitude brought immediate practical results. It was then discovered that when one alcoholic had planted in the mind of another the true nature of his malady, that person could never be the same again. Hallelujah. I love this. Never again. You think you have no power. You think you have no control. It's just that we don't call it that anymore. You do. Is that your will is in line with God's. That's how you can plant that seed. That's how you can do that. Following every spree, he would say to himself, maybe those AAs were right. After a few such experiences, often years before the onset of extreme difficulties, he would return to us convinced he had hit bottom as truly as any of us. John Barleycorn himself had become our best advocate. John Barleycorn is alcohol. See, and let's as we go through this and we start to learn things. Right now, I just told you what John Barleycorn is. A lot of people don't know what it is. They don't. But once they're like Barleycorn, they're like, who's this John Barleycorn dude I keep hearing about? Is he like the fourth member of AA or? I've heard that stuff before. Who's this? Okay. We are naive. So when you're reading this, just say it. If you're reading it out loud, you had hit bottom, John Barleycorn, which is alcohol. Just tell people. You already know. Because they feel kind of silly asking. So if we kind of put that in front of them and we put a solution in front of them before the problem happens, then you're setting them up for success. They're doing the work, but you're setting them up to succeed in their recovery. For practicing AA's remaining 11 steps means adoptions of attitudes and actions that almost no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. It is impossible to do. Impossible. I know. I tried and I watched other people do it. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? I do. See, these things change. So I answer these questions when they come up. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? I do. I love it. It makes me free. Who wants to confess his faults to another and make restitution for harm done? You guys have seen me make amends right here now. Right here. Look. It's all about what they're saying is you're going to be a leader by example. You're going to be the example of recovery. Right? Or you already are. Who wants to sacrifice time and energy in trying to carry AA's message to the next suburb? No, the average alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive himself. And even then, that don't do it. Nope. And I'm just going to be honest with you here. I wanted me dead. I would wake up in the morning and curse God for still being alive. So when they say unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive himself, that didn't have depth and weight for me. Seeing the sadness in my wife's eyes, because she kept telling me, my current wife was my girlfriend when I got sober the first time. And she would tell me, Dion, I know who the real Dion is. And she was right. She did. And she said, I'm going to sit around and wait till I get him back. And that's what finally got me here. Then I started doing the work for myself, and that's when things started to change. So I got sober because of a situation. But once I got in, I did recovery for myself. You have to, it doesn't work any other way. Under the lash of alcoholism, we are driven to AA. Nobody comes skipping into this program. Nobody. And there we discover the fatal nature of our situation. AA is where bullshit dies. Then and only then do we become as open minded to conviction and as willing to listen as the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything which will lift the merciless obsession from us. And when we say anything, we mean doing the work. I do not miss the obsession. I thank God every day that my obsession has been lifted from me, because it allows me to be available and spend time with the people that I love, or to come on here and spend some time with my friends that I love, just so we can spend a little bit of time together, talk about God. Maybe it'll make it a better day for everybody. Because I do believe that one person can make a difference. I do. Maybe not change the world. I don't need to change the world. I just need to work on my community. All right. Thank you guys. That was kind of fun. I appreciate it. And thanks for hanging out, Patricia and Chris. Anybody else that hung out, I love you. Thank you. Everybody have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow for the Daily Trudge. I love you. Peace out.